Hey guys, it's Sarah here. Today we're just doing a large textured swipe piece in some of my favorite colors. Now off camera I have prepared the gesso the ground here of this large canvas. I had my kids home and I couldn't get the camera set up, had 5 minutes to paint, so I just quickly got some gesso on there just with a large palette knife, just to give it a little bit of texture on the underneath when I'm painting. It just means I don't have to use quite so much thick heavy paint, which is more expensive than just placing the white down on the bottom. So I did that, and just here I am going around the edges of the canvas with just some black paint just to neaten it up. It's a bit hard when I'm swiping with the knife to get paint nicely down the sides, and I kind of like to do that. And you'll notice as I go around that on each layer I'm putting just a little bit of paint just on the sides as well. And that is my trusty Bunnings $3 knife that I got from the like putty section or whatever it is. I use a couple of them. You can see them up on the top left hand side there as well. I didn't actually use them in this one. I'm not sure why. I think I did in the last one I did, but obviously not this one. And I'm just using just some Italia acrylic paints, and using them neat, so with no added medium or anything like that. Obviously I waited for that base layer to dry, which is why I had to do it off camera with just the moment I had to do with the kids. I needed it to dry before I started this layer. It has to be dry in between each layer. You can use a hairdryer, but when you're putting on that first thick layer with big chunky bits in it, it can take a little while, so it's best to give it an air dry as well as the hairdryer if that's what you're going to do. And all I'm doing is just swiping it over the top of the texture, putting in a couple of lines and things on that. And then after this layer of the black, I need to let this dry. So this dries quite quickly with a hairdryer, which I won't do on camera, or you can just wait for it to air dry. It doesn't take too long. Actually, that's not a tele paint, that's just a global student acrylic, that particular black. Just because it's a plain black, I didn't need to use anything anything too fancy for that. And you can see through there, because I'm swiping with that metal, a little bit of that texture you can see starting to come through. Now that black is dry, and I'm now putting on a mixture of my own creation. This is a Joe Sonia's Phthalo Blue mixed with a little bit of black, and I think just the tiniest bit of a green in there as well, but hardly any at all. It's mostly blue. It's just a nice dark navy blue, and just occasionally putting a little bit on some of the sides as well, and trying to keep a little bit of the white showing through. And you can see a little bit of thicker paint as well in some parts, so it's not all completely smooth. You've got chunky bits going in there too. You want a little bit of the texture in there if you can manage it for this. Each layer you keep building up a little bit of texture and a little bit of texture. You can see in there there's just these going around the sides. And again, I have dried this. I took this out and dried it off with the hairdryer after I had done this. That's sort of what it's looking like. Okay, so here it is. You can see it's mostly dry, and now I'm putting in a turquoise colour. Blobbing that in a little bit, and there you go, phthalo turquoise, which is a transparent colour, and you'll notice as it's going on that it's going on quite see-through. Well, it is when it's not too thick. And I'm just looking for some not too even, just bits everywhere. Make sure that you start some of them sort of off the canvas. You don't want all of them finishing, a centimetre, so you end up with a border around your canvas. You want some of them that go off the sides. can see here, it's sort of all finishing a little bit too much on the edge, and I'll go around and fix that up a little bit. And just every layer, you're just popping in that little bit extra on the edges and things. Having a little bit of the white canvas still showing through is perfectly fine. And now the next color I am putting in is a, oh gosh, what's this? This is another blend, another blue blend of mine, which is, I think, again, phthalo, turquoise, green. I don't think there's any, there might be a tiny little bit of black in this. I will go and hopefully put that in the comments. It's one of my favorite colors, though. I love this color. I don't like just painting with just the straight colors straight from the tubes all the time or anything like that. I do like blending them and getting a little bit of you know, depth to those color. It means I can change you know, the way it looks, rather than just having, you know, plain turquoise and plain blue or anything like that. Even in something like this, I like to, you know, change that up just a little bit. And then you'll notice when I do use them, I think it might be the next color, which is the really bright turquoise that you can see in the back there. I don't think I can point to it on here. It really makes it stand out that little bit more. And also with this, I'm kind of going from dark to a little bit from dark to light. I then go back to some darks and then back to some lights, but it just adds that little bit of extra depth to it, rather than going from, you know, lights to darks, or just doing them all at the same time. You can sort of see the layers coming through. And again, I've gone and dried that with a hairdryer, and as you can see, as it's dried, the transparency of that is a little bit more obvious. So now I am using this really pretty turquoise color over the top, and against the dark of the background, this is a much more opaque color, and it's very, very bright. You can see from in this here, this is obviously the bright color, although the lighting in this room is terrible. I need to get some proper lights in here. I'm really sorry. They are coming, we'll get there. And then again, just popping that in there. Doesn't all have to be very neat and tidy. Some chunks is fine, although I think I get rid of that particular big one. You want some chunky bits, and then some bits that the paint is pulled through so you can see the colours from the other sides. And again, make sure you get some that are going kind of off the edge, as well as some that are in the middle, and try and stagger them around just a little bit. And then I've just sort of started smearing those ones through just to add a little bit of extra texture. You're kind of grating it across the texture you've created with every other layers, little bits of chunky paint that's coming through, and you end up with some of those cool sort of textures. And I don't think that bit was quite dry, and you've ended up with a smear of the dark blue in there, but that's okay. And this is a light blue color. It is a mixture of white, a turquoise, that turquoise at the back, and a pearl white. So it's a white with pearl white paint in it, and a tiny bit of a color shift blue paint that is from Amsterdam, and it's quite pretty. Can't really see it here, but when you varnish the painting at the end, you'll notice little bits of shimmery blues and whites and things that come through that. And I think, no, I haven't dried that very well at this point, and I've just gone straight into some silver because it will blend a little bit with that pearl paint as well. So it's just a straight silver metallic paint. Now I often use these particular pieces where I've just done this very textured background as the background for a painting. So from here you can, if you were just to use pale colors with this, you know, you could put a dark, you know, dark flowers or something on it, or something along those lines, just to add but this just adds, you know, that little bit of, you know, interest into the background. If you're going to do a painting on it, it would need to be a little bit perhaps less contrasty, or a little bit more even in some parts. But it's a good technique, you know, just use a palette knife, or in this case just a putty knife from Bunnings, just to add some texture in there. And as you can see, I'm just swiping a little bit to the side. I'm trying to keep the main theme of that going straight down, and I do a tiny little bit of the horizontals just with the gold just at the very end, just to break it up just a tiny bit. For the most part, just trying to swipe down, and then just a little bit of the on the side with that. And then that is just back to the black, but this time it is the Atelier black rather than the global black, just to add in just a little bit more of those darks. And with this one, I am putting it on fairly thinly, so you can see that you can see the color coming through. And obviously I have dried this before I put the black on it, otherwise you'd be ending up with that just blending into the silver and just making a muddy gray. And by swiping it on thinly, you're still seeing all the colors that are actually coming through from the bottom as well, just to add a little bit of extra depth to it. It's a good technique for just doing, you know, backgrounds in general, and you can just swipe the entire thing. You don't need to do it in this little piecey kind of a way, but it means, oh, there's the baby. As I said, I had the kids. Yay, and she was like, I want to get in and play. She's trying to wiggle the camera, and I'm like, oh no. She's only 18 months old. I have a feeling the big one's about to pop in on the other side of the screen too. Maybe I've edited her out, I'm not sure. And now this is the pearl white. So this is the color that I added into that pale blue you can see on the back corner there. So it's a shimmery pale blue. I mean, shimmery white, just coming through there. And again, just doing little bits on the sides of the canvas too. And back to my pretty blue that I like, just to add in a little bit on the top. You can see that I did dry the layer in between there, because swiping over that pearl, you can still see that the line of pearl through there. And then just, yeah, doing a little bit on the sides. If you keep it plain black, it just looks like a ugly black border and it doesn't look very good. And if you don't paint them at all, you have to be very careful not to get any over the sides, and yeah, it just doesn't quite work. Unlike, say, an acrylic pour, you know, if you're pouring it over the sides and it all matches quite nicely, this is a bit more tricky. And I'm just touching in a few little bits and pieces, and I'm just doing some horizontal lines to add a little bit of extra texture with that paint. I could have gone and got my other knife, but I was running out of time, kids running around and trying to do layers here and there, and so I was snatching in a layer every time I managed to get the children to occupy themselves with toys or something like that. And now dried again, we're going in with some of the copper colours to go on top. Now I wasn't amazingly happy with the way the copper came out on this one. I really should have switched to a smaller knife instead of making these so thick. The last one I did, I thought the copper was much prettier. You can see there it's quite a thick line, and I wish I'd switched my knife down to something a little bit smaller for this. In hindsight, next time I'll do that. I think I did that the first time round, and this time round I was just too lazy to go and get the other knife. I'm still thinking I might go back into this painting and just sort of put some black or another colour down on half of the strips of the copper there. think I put too much on. I love the copper, and so it's difficult for me not to use too much of it because I just love it. And a lot of my paintings are this copper and blue at the moment. It's just great. And then we're going in with the gold. This is a really nice, a nice rich gold. And oh yeah, just putting a little bit on the sides. Just touching a few of those colours in. Just cleaning my knife because I don't want to mix up the colours too much by dunking into the pots. Now I'm doing a little bit of this wipe over the top, but the gold is very bright and it does tend to take over, so trying not to use too much of it. Again, I think I did use a teensy bit too much. Maybe next time I will use a little less. And then this is the one where I do quite a lot of horizontal just at the end with the one colour, just to break up a little bit of those lines. Just use the side of the knife there, flick it round, or I could have got my smaller knife to do that. Just tilting that knife on the side to get it to make that thin line, and just that tiny little bit of the horizontal lines just to break that up, and I quite like that. But you could use this as a background for some very dark like black flowers or something along those lines, but I just like these colors. I want to do a really big one of these for the back of the wall. They look great with you can resin them or gloss varnish up on the back there, and I think they look great just for a quick pop of color. And that is it. And again, so this is it here, finished. It's a bit difficult to see in the light, but that's okay. And there we go. Anyway, thanks for watching, and please subscribe to see some more, and I will catch you next time. So first of all, sorry about the poor lighting and the videoing in here. It's not ideal, and we will eventually get around to getting something a little bit better than this, but this is what we've got for the moment, so we'll go with it. Okay, so it's quite late at night now, and I realized I didn't actually take any photos of the finished painting for you. This is the original one I did here. Did that a couple of weeks ago, and it's now had one coat of varnish on it. And here is the one that we did in this painting. As you can see, there's perhaps a little bit too much copper, and I still might go back in and fix that up, and we'll see how we go with that. But thanks for watching, and hope you stay around and subscribe and see some more of my work.